I think it's more effort. Ah, sí, pues, nada ahora, gracias. Hello, Mark.
Hi, Anthony. Can you hear me?
Yeah, how's it going?
Pretty good, you?
Doing good, man. Where are you calling in from?
From Montreal.
Oh, very cool. Well, I'll see you soon. Next month. You're the one running the Montreal meetup over there.
No, it's not me that's running it, but I did go to my first one last week.
Oh, cool. I'm hoping to go to to one in September because I'm getting to Montreal in
Cool.
like middle of September.
So where are you located?
I'm in Oaxaca right now, which is a city in Mexico.
Oh, Mexico.
Welcome, Dan.
Yo, yo, can you hear me?
Yeah, sounds good. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, absolutely. Anthony, lovely to see you. Thanks for having me on. This is great.
Likewise.
What's up, Mark?
Doing well, you?
Hectic, but doing well. I'm getting Wi-Fi installed at the moment, so we'll see how choppy this call ends up being. I don't want to get interrupted too much, but we should be all right.
Are you connected to the same network getting installed?
No. I mean, I don't know how nicely I asked, but my neighbors were very sweet to me and said, you know what, we'll let you get on the Wi-Fi. So, yeah.
Good neighbors.
Yeah, honestly. I like that's quite the painting behind you, Anthony.
Yeah, I know, right? It's very aggressive.
Yeah.
Can't tell if it's a male horse or, oh, wow.
Oh, geez. I did not see
a little
the
bit more aggressive than I
realized. Told me about it. Oh, man.
My head was in the way. I didn't see it either. I was gonna say I can't tell if it's a female horse or a male horse, and then I realized, yeah, you can definitely tell.
It's like, oh, it's got 5 legs. Yeah. Anthony, is this being recorded now that we've already gotten to the raunchy jokes?
Yeah, I might trim it.
Don't.
We'll start right after the horse.
Okay.
That was the best
You
part.
Oh, there's Mark. Fantastic.
Hey, Will, welcome to the meetup. We're gonna get rolling in about 5 minutes. We'll just give people a couple minutes to hop in. Where are you calling in from?
Atlanta, Georgia.
Nice.
So Will's my new co-founder.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
For good things about you.
Yeah. I mean, I talk a little bit of shit, but sometimes I say something nice.
Was that a secret? Am I spilling the beans?
Huh?
Was that a secret? Am I spilling the beans?
I don't know. It's out in the open. It's an open. It's a public relationship now. So Will, how was the? You said the call went okay, right? It was like choppy and short.
Yeah. It was literally 15 minutes, and it was really hard to hear everybody. So.
Okay. Yeah, we had a group call. If you guys aren't doing YC Startup School, I highly recommend. It's just interesting to talk to other founders. Basically, it's like a 10-week. Is it 10 weeks, Will?
I think it's 10 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's a 10-week program, and it's I think open to everybody. And so you get to talk to other founders. Like one dude we talked to was insane. Like he, I think, already had like a couple of companies under his belt. And he was working on, I think it's called, what was it, Real Theory? But they're working on making like Docker or Kubernetes instances scale in terms of their performance and speed and size. I'm not sure, but it's like trying to make DevOps not a thing anymore, where engineers just focus on actually making the thing. And then DevOps is just completely automated. So yeah, there's some like real killers mixed in with some interesting characters, but it's been a lot of fun.
Very political phrasing. I'm impressed. You guys, this is the startup school from Y Combinator you guys are doing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What does
Anthony,
that entail?
you said political phrasing?
Yeah, some like real serious companies and some real interesting ones too.
Well, yeah, I mean, interesting can be a euphemism, but they're interesting characters, yeah.
Nice.
We're not naming anybody, right? So, Mark, I mean, it's just the 4 of us. Anthony, like, we'll get to talk to Will at some point. I think just amongst the 3 of us. But yeah, Mark, what brings you here, man? What's cool? Yeah, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, I've been an indie hacker now since 2011.
Wow.
I was really lucky with my first product. It just took off organically, no paid marketing, just word of mouth. And ever since,
awesome.
I've been trying to replicate it with no luck.
What was the product?
It was a food journal for people following the paleo diet.
Okay, nice. Did you follow the paleo diet?
Yeah, exactly. It was a scratch
Awesome.
your own itch kind of thing.
Market of one.
Yeah. None of the other tools for tracking were compatible with the paleo diet.
Okay.
So I'll just build my own, and then I posted it in the forum, and it just took off.
Which forum? Indie Hackers?
It was no, it was a niche forum just for people.
Like a niche forum.
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's awesome. That's really cool.
Yeah. But,
Nice.
There are links to the product in the chat if you want.
Yeah, please do. I'm curious now.
Mark, how was that monetized? Was it advertising?
At first it was, and then I introduced a premium membership. So where there's extra features, that's where most of the money is coming from the premium membership.
And it's still live?
Yeah, still going
That's
well.
so
There's a
cool.
lot of competition now, though.
Okay, that's awesome.
There's a lot of competition. So I've been trying to diversify, try different things, and nothing has stuck. I'm just throwing spaghetti at the wall, nothing is sticking. So that's why I'm here. I like to hear other success stories for inspiration.
Oh, this is, I mean, Will might want to, I guess, prop me up a little bit, but it's not yet a success story. It's maybe getting there. We'll see. There's a lot of promising things, but you'll see why it's not a success story.
Definitely not yet.
Not yet. It's promising.
At least not compared to where it's going, I think.
I did have Mark, I had a product, not a product similar, but I had a similar path to my first successful product, which was like just throw something out there and it just happened to stick, and then put a little effort into marketing and advertising and SEO, and it took off. So yeah, I can relate to that. And it's like hard. That's just like when it takes off on its own, that's great. But then actually trying to get the next thing to work is actually pretty hard.
Right. So what was your first product?
So it was, I was learning to code. I actually have a similar timeline as you. It was back in 2011, 12. I was learning to code and put out like a couple of card game websites like Solitaire, Spades, Hearts,
Okay.
that sort of thing. And within 4 years, so like the first couple of months, it made like 12 cents. I put Google AdSense on there. And funny enough, I let the domains expire initially, and then I looked back at my revenue, and I was like, oh, the month I let it expire, it made $8. I was like, that's huge. I can pay for my server costs now, or my hosting, whatever. And so I bought it back and then started putting more effort into SEO. And within 3 years, it was doing 9 to 10K a month in revenue.
Wow.
And then I got an offer late last year to buy it, and sold it March of this year.
Really?
Congrats.
Nice.
So yeah, Will's a really authentic indie hacker.
Glad to have you here, man. Welcome, Ryan, as well.
Lucky one.
What's up, Ryan?
Hey, buddy. Can you hear me?
Yeah. So yeah, this is a lot of like small world. Sorry, Mark. Everyone's just kind of. But Ryan and Anthony used to be my roommates.
Really?
Yeah, back at University of Maryland. So
It was terrible living with them.
honestly, yeah, Anthony, do you want to just get started? Like it's 2:06.
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool.
Welcome everybody to Indie Hackers Worldwide. Today we're recording. The stream will be available after the fact, and we can share it with everybody if you want to go back to refer later, or share it with any of your friends who couldn't make it. We have with us today the incredible Dan Bogacheck and his partner Will, who are working on a really cool startup called handwrite.io, which combines machine learning and robots in order to send out personalized handwritten cards in your own handwriting. So with that said, I'm going to pass the mic over to Dan in a sec. After we're about 10-15-minute intro, we'll open it up to Q&A, and then just chat until our time runs out, which is going to be in an hour and 23 minutes.
Cool. Anthony, thanks, man. What's up?
Take it away, Dan.
Thanks. So yeah, just first of all, thanks for having me. It's really awesome to be here. I'm really flattered and honored that I get to share this stuff. So yeah, just thanks for having me on, Anthony, and everybody else, right? So I guess I was expecting a larger group, but I wanted to sort of gauge. I had two questions, like who's working on a product right now? Like raise your hands. Okay, so I think everybody. Cool. And then how many people are working on hardware? Because a lot of the lessons that I've learned are hardware related. So I guess, yeah, who wants to work on hardware or is currently working on hardware? Probably you, Ryan, right?
Hardware.
You're working on hardware, Ryan?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. So we got one hardware. Cool. So, I mean, this is like a redundant intro for most of us, but let's just go with it. I went to UMD from 2014 to 2018 for electrical engineering and ended up dropping out. I love building stuff, and I guess my goal in life is to just build cool shit and help people and have fun while doing it. So the 30-second pitch for Handwrite is, Handwrite lets you send out handwritten cards in 30 seconds or less. We use AI-powered robots that hold pen and paper to actually write in your handwriting. It can be your handwriting, it can be anybody else's if you don't like your actual handwriting. And so we write out the card along with the address on the envelope, and we ship it straight to your recipient. And that's the whole thing. So if you guys are familiar with lob.com, we want to become the lob.com for handwritten cards. So yeah, I guess the sort of talking points that we could have here is timeline and lessons learned. So we can just start with timeline. So the way this was actually incepted, or I don't know what the proper word is, origination, was that my good friend Jackson Geller was living up in New York, and I think I was just bored. So I said to him, hey, I want to go up to New York. Do you mind if I crash on your couch? And this was like on a Friday. Or no, I think this was on a Saturday morning. And I was just like, you know what? I'm going to get in the car in the next hour and go to New York. Which is really stupid. Like I ended up stealing my parents' car. So they still haven't found out. But yeah, like he was like, sure, crash, like whatever, like let's come visit. And so I think maybe on my first or second trip to New York to Jackson, Jackson shows me this website. It's called bond.co. And they were sending out handwritten cards on stationery to whoever you want. And it was very much a consumer-oriented product. But they weren't using actual handwriting, and it was fonts you could choose from. And it was like $5 a card. And so Jackson and I start, poking holes at this thing, and we're like, well, there's got to be a way to make this better. Like $5 a card is an insane margin. Like we could even drop that and just have a more fair price. And I bet we could actually do it with handwriting. And so we came to that conclusion together. And so we started working on it in May of 2016. So like we started making the very basic, like first hardware of like the actual machine that writes with a pen in 2016. And like, it started out super, super crusty. Like it was like, if you imagine a 3D printer, it's just one axis and like a little thing that lifts a pen. And we just had it like be a sewing machine going side to side. It was just like back and forth. And that was like our first test. And so we fast forward to like September to December of 2016. I ended up moving out of my parents' place into Startup Village, where Anthony and Ryan were my roommates on UMD campus. And so Jackson, unfortunately, had to drop out because he was really busy. He was at SeatGeek at the time in New York. Was growing really fast. So he basically ended up dropping out, but he continued to like sort of like shunt money and like let me order parts on his credit card for a while. So big hearts to Jackson. I started focusing on the software and AI portion in like roughly December of 2016. So like it was a two-pronged problem where you had hardware and software. Also, Anthony, what's my time at? I don't want to ramble too long because I feel like I can fill in a lot of details. So
Got another 5 minutes.
Another 5 minutes? Okay, geez, lightning round.
You can take 10. You can take 10.
Okay, we'll take 10 minutes. So by January of 2017, I'd made my first like full pen plotter, a machine that actually could write on, paper with like holding a pen. And that was generation 0. It was made out of 3D prints and medium density fiberboard. And so it was really crappy. It looked disgusting and it just barely worked. So I like got my first customer in August of 2017, who is now also an investor. But I've made my first professional machine right before, like professional meaning, like manufactured, like fully rigid. The biggest problem with the old machine was that it wasn't really rigid. Everything's made out of basically cheese, right? There's like very low fidelity in the actual replication of parts moving around to precise coordinates, which is really what you need. So I made my first machine out of sheet metal, learned a lot in summer of 2017. And I got my first customer who actually wanted to use this because it became easier for him to, send out these cards by just typing something out than it was for him to sit and write out 10 cards. So then I got a large order in 2017, and I tried to scale up to 5 machines that would automatically reload themselves. And I think it was like a 3,000 card order for an e-commerce company. And let's just say I have a full license to curse right here.
Go for it.
Yeah, completely shit the bed. Just complete shit the bed. I basically tried to assemble and gear up 5 machines to fulfill 3,000 cards in the span of I think 3 or 4 weeks. So if I'm the idiot and you're learning lessons from me, just there is such a thing as too much business, especially in terms of fulfillment and hardware. You don't want to, especially stretch yourself then and then overpromise. So yeah, anyone doing hardware and fulfillment or either one of those two, yeah, definitely start slow. Scaling hardware is even more painful, I'd say. So those machines that I tried to scale up, they're the 2nd generation machine. And they were 0 reliability. They were complete garbage. They were still just as rigid as the 1st generation, but they just did not work reliably enough to have any sort of fulfillment. So then there's a huge chunk of time where from 2017 to November 2017 to August 2018, I was doing odd jobs and continued to develop the handwriting tech. I dropped out of University of Maryland in January 2018 just to focus on basically getting myself out of debt and working on base reach. And then August 2018, I find the domain handwrite.io, and I was like, that describes everything that I'm doing and way better than whatever the hell base reach means. So I snapped that up and I rebranded to Handwrite. And then in August 2018, my first customer tells his boss about Handwrite. And he's like, hey, I've been using this guy for a little over, maybe a little under a year. And he has something really exciting. And his bosses found out, and then he told him. And so in October 2018, that little group of people, it's now 4 people, became my basically friends and family round, because it's a little embarrassing to call it a seed round. But yeah, they provided the initial sort of funding for me to actually work on this full time and really develop this for scale. So from October 2018 to December 2018, I did the biggest hardware redesign or design to date, the Gen 3. And I learned from my mistakes where it was really difficult to assemble the old machines, and it was really low reliability in terms of the actual operation of the machines. And so I placed huge priority on making it so that it was super easy to assemble and that it just would not screw up. And so December 2018, the parts start shipping in, and I finally move out of the shed. So I was living in a shed for 2 years at this point, working on this stuff. So now I got to move out of the shed, which is nice. And then January to February of 2019, I got the hardware that I had ordered and designed up and running. Anthony came to visit me, which is a highlight. Yeah, started working more on the website now that I could fulfill reliably. And in April, we switched to a subscription model for the sales enablement market. So basically, salespeople would use this to send out their handwritten cards after meetings, or to follow up after an email and before their meetings. And so between, I think, April and May and June, I forget what the timeline is because it's just so fuzzy, but we got 10 customers with recurring revenue. So that was good. Finally, 3 years in, you're finally doing revenue. So you guys are already seeing a lot of lessons in how this was more or less a slightly proven market, but the order of the thing was inverse. It should be revenue first and then the tech. So there's a whole lot of stuff to talk about. So then, June through July of this year, more customers are signing up, and I'm focusing a lot on the web and UX, making it easy to use. And I think back in April, I forget, Will, remind me again, but you signed up for Handwrite as, I think, my first API customer for real estate. So what Will did, he was working on this service called Move Insights, which would let moving companies and I think real estate investors potentially. I'm not sure who the other segment was, but moving companies basically send cards to different addresses in different neighborhoods of people who were looking to sell off their houses or move somewhere. And so this was like the lob.com for handwritten cards for real estate. And so we did, I think, probably close to 200 or 250 cards. Super easy working with Will. It was easiest customer I've ever had. And then a couple of weeks ago, like 2 or 3 weeks ago, Will reached out and was like, "Hey, I want to work on this with you." So now Will's on board with the team. We're a team of 2, and we're currently upgrading our hardware to where we can have it so we, instead of ordering from a third party to like have our stationery printed, we're gonna have a printer that prints the stationery on demand. So anybody, like everybody and their mom, can now have a custom stationery which they use. So like for Ryan, you would have like Ryan Pillai at the top and then a line, and then you have, like this nice looking header after which you can write on, on the bottom. And so that was like the biggest feature which our sales guys and gals wanted to use, as well as any sort of like e-commerce company, like they want their own custom cards. And so it's just making sourcing and the actual fulfillment process a lot easier. It's much more scalable in terms of the actual fulfillment. So yeah, I mean, that's today. So like we just moved into a new office. I'm dealing with Wi-Fi. That's like the timeline of Handwrite. And I guess, yeah, Anthony, how much time do I have? I've been ranting.
Awesome. Let's switch to the questions now, because I
Cool.
think a lot of people are going to have
Yeah, let's do it.
I can kick you off. Is there any challenges of doing a hardware startup that people indie hacking from a software background probably wouldn't think of?
Yeah, I mean, I can just answer this from my hardware startup advice, sort of like notes I've prepared. Yeah, so I guess something that you wouldn't expect from a software background about hardware. Well, people forget that it's ridiculously expensive. My recommendation for anybody who's an indie hacker, and like I'm a person who loves working with my hands and building stuff. Yeah, if you like want to make money and you're starting close to zero in terms of net worth, don't do hardware because it'll very quickly it'll just drain your bank account while you are working on a prototype that may not work because, like in my case, I wasn't really that experienced, right? So like I did have like an okay head on my shoulders, but like hardware in itself is very iterative. So like until you get to that MVP where it's presentable enough to people actually to appreciate it or like see the value in it, yeah, it's gonna take. I mean, it depends on what size tchotchke you're making, right? What size product, but yeah, it's gonna take a long time, and so like a long time, a lot of money. So definitely beware of hardware if you aren't willing to like flush the money away. It should be like if you're building the hardware, almost like what Mark did with his paleo diet thing. Like build it for yourself because you're gonna enjoy it, and then see if you can monetize it. I'd say because the traditional sort of hardware startup route is just like let's raise a huge round and then burn it all, or like Kickstarter is infamous for this, where you crowdfund the first orders, but it's like impossible to fulfill because nobody's experienced and it's their like first or second rodeo, and the tooling is insanely expensive for manufacturing, and going from prototype to manufacture is like full scale manufacture is a huge hurdle. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff that you wouldn't expect from a software background, because like for software, it's like, okay, I built this app, like how do I actually like add, like, okay, like let me put in a load balancer and then like put another instance of this on Heroku or AWS or wherever you are. So it scales much less, much more painfully, let's say. Yeah.
Awesome. For everybody that just joined us, we've got again Bogacheck and Will from handwrite.io. Link is in the chat, and the floor is now open for questions. We have one question in the chat, which was a follow-up, which was, couldn't you just order a machine from China? And that is from Dayute.
Yeah, great question. The reason why you absolutely could order a machine from China, but getting that machine from China to then easily integrate with everything is really non-trivial. So in my case, like, I have the excuse of being unreasonable and being nerdy, where I wanted to actually figure out the tech for myself. But in terms of if I were to do this from scratch, but order the machines from China, what you're essentially getting is a black box. Like, these are all talking points that I had in the sort of hardware portion of the advice. But yeah, you're essentially getting a black box, which you then have to figure out how to plug and play with. And so that can be really difficult from a scale perspective. Like, in terms of price point, if it's a consumer product, it can get expensive quickly. But in this case, you simply just don't have full control over the actual part that you're using. So if the entire machine is cheaply built, you have to deal with, like, okay, if this part breaks, how do I source the replacement for it, right? Especially if it's shipped over from China. It's like, how do you talk to whatever manufacturer? Yeah, I mean, along with a lot of the other stuff that I was going to say, like, use a local manufacturer for your first prototypes. Sourcing is as much of a problem in hardware as the actual building it. So that's the short answer for why not order a machine from China. But yeah.
I have a question. How did you acquire your first customers?
I just talked to him.
So,
because
cold calling?
No, I mean, he was a friend. He was
Okay.
also yeah, his name's Elon, and he was doing sales at a SaaS company, and he was like, my hand is dying from writing out these handwritten cards. Like, can I digitize my handwriting and then have you write them out? And so I think the first order that we ever did together was, I think he actually sent over his company's stationery in like a FedEx envelope. And I like literally put that in the machine. So like it was very much cooperative at first. Yeah. Yeah, I guess what else do people want to talk about? I think Anthony nudged me and said, talk about revenue a little bit. So this is a subscription model right now. And so we have, I think, I kind of lost track because we got a couple more signups, but it's at 23 people right now, paying between 30 and $100 a month. And so what those different tiers give you is the ability to send fewer or more cards per month. So I think it's $30 a month for 10 cards a month, $50 a month for 20 cards a month, and $100 a month for 50 cards per month. And so like you have some economy of scale going into there where it gets cheaper and cheaper per card for the power users. But we're also about to transition this to a revenue model where you can choose what you want to pay. Like, do you want to pay more expensive per card because you don't need 10 cards a month? Or are you going to be a power user where you're going to pay up front, but it's going to be cheaper overall to send cards? Kind of like what Lob does, where you pay a fee of like every month, and then the actual per card is much cheaper. So yeah. What else, guys? I'm all ears.
How did you get the 23 customers?
Word of mouth.
Like, just your first guy just told someone else, and then they just told someone else.
Exactly. Yeah.
Have you tried any like cold emails or anything like that?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, a portion of the customers I did just get from talking to people. Yeah, Will also just messaged in the chat. So the customers we're trying to fulfill this month, they're currently prospects because the money hasn't hit the bank. But the cards we're about to do for them in the next month, we got off of like a personal relationship, and then we responded to a Reddit post, and they emailed us. So yeah, it's a like our primary strategy even now is definitely outbound sales. It's just like cold calling, cold emailing, networking. In our case, it's actually useful to network because the people who are networking are really busy and they want to still hang on to their relationships, but they never have the time to sit down and handwrite cards. So this is like a clear problem solution for them. I have heard from a lot of founders that networking is a waste of time, but in our case, it worked out pretty well. It's been working out pretty well.
How
Good
complex
question.
can your notes get, by the way? I've seen one. It's just like, yeah. How complex can they get? Can you write like a whole page, or does that have to be quite big?
Yeah. So we only do 4x6s.
Okay.
So I'm assuming you're from the UK based on accent.
Yep.
Okay. So it's an A4.
Okay.
So
Are you sure it's A4?
what up?
Are you sure it's A4 and not like A5 or something?
Yeah, it's A4. So it's 4x6 inches. Or maybe it's A6. I forget. It's either A4 or A6. I'm used to saying 4x6.
A4 is massive. Like A4 is
Okay.
like.
Oh, A4 is the 8.5x11. Yeah. I believe it's A6 then, but it's 4x6 inches.
That makes more sense.
Yeah. We do only that size, but we've just recently added where you can add signatures to your card. And you can write, like, it generates the text from scratch every time. So you can write whatever you want. Like you can say, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. And it's going to take all the data from your handwriting and then write that out every time. So I don't know about answering your question in terms of like how complex can it get. But you can synthesize fresh handwriting every time. Like that's the sort of novelty in it. Yeah.
Dan.
What's
Just
up, Ryan?
Hey, what's going on, dude? So just a technical question for you. I'm sure you'll enjoy answering.
Sure.
But what control strategy are you using to actually plot? Is it like a PID loop? Are you?
Yeah, great question. So for now, like the funny thing is we're just using 3D printer technology. It's like 3D printers don't use any PID. So eventually it might make sense for us to come up with our own motor control algorithm I'm predicting that we'll have to, because the goal for this is to where you walk in, you put in your own handwriting, and then you walk back again the next day and we present your original handwriting and the handwriting we did that you submitted, and you can't tell the difference. And so that level of sophistication, you just need to like literally be able to mimic your like pen mechanics perfectly. And so that will definitely require like super smooth motors that can move at high speeds and all sorts of PID. But for now, it's just CNC G code.
Cool.
If anybody here is familiar with G code, that it'll get you a long way. It's definitely not the final answer, but yeah.
And how
Great
fast?
Question. Yeah.
How fast is I think you said an A6 card print per card, the speed?
Yeah. So I mean, it depends on how much writing is on the card and how dense it is, but it takes between 4 and 8 minutes.
Cool.
And like sometimes it takes like 30 seconds if the person's just written a single thing on the card, like a single sentence. So yeah. Dayute also had a question. Have you ever heard of any ROIs versus printed cards? Yeah, so there's never been a comparison between, or I haven't seen a comparison yet between the ROI that you get from a printed card versus a handwritten card, but it's what we're working on with a couple of case studies right now in terms of ROI, and then we can compare like the sort of status quo that you get with typical direct mail. My experience with direct mail is that if I open it, it goes in the trash, and if I don't open it, it goes in the trash. And I think you have to be either in a really bad mood or a little bit of a psychopath to not open a handwritten card. So regardless of what your conversion rate is from your actual messaging, the open rate is really high. And we haven't done any sort of like tracking on that, which we could do with some sort of IoT thing, potentially, which would be, again, not sure how feasible it is. We can only track the sort of secondary thing of conversion rate. But the open rate is, it's in all likelihood close to 100%. I haven't met anybody who's chucked out a handwritten card before opening it. So yeah, we're working on a couple of case studies to actually pin down the ROI of these handwritten cards. Yeah, so thank you, Will. Our competitors say 80+%, which I think is potentially a baloney statistic. Like, it really depends on what the messaging is. That's why it's important to do these case studies. But yeah, our competitors say 80+%. You could say 90%. Yeah, it's in that ballpark. It's high.
Do you write, so if you're sending these out, are they like postcards, or do they have like a letter with the address written in their handwriting as well?
Great question. So I'm not sure. Do I have? No, I don't have any samples. So we're moving from my apartment to the office, and so all the examples I have are in the apartment, unfortunately. But yeah, it's a 4x6. Here's the envelope that we write on. So it's an enveloped card. So we actually write the address on the envelope, and then we write the address on the card, and then we put the two together, put the card in the envelope, put the stamp on it, and then send it. So
Okay.
both pieces are handwritten. Oh, perfect. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. So do you have competitors? I did.
Yeah, we have a bunch of competitors.
Okay. Yeah, because someone was talking about China and stuff, so I was guessing you had some guys who use that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the reason why I feel like they're struggling, I think everybody in the space is struggling because there's not enough of an educated market yet. There's a lot of education that needs to happen before this becomes really widely adopted. So it's novel, but I think one of the reasons people are struggling is because of third-party hardware and software, where it's like, how do you make this automatable? Like,
Yeah, I 100% agree. I've worked with hardware before, which has been third party, and it's like a black box trying to get into there. It's so difficult.
Exactly.
What normally ends up happening is we try to integrate with them, talk with their teams, and then what happens is we just get a Raspberry Pi and just use that to do everything.
Exactly. And yeah, we use Raspberry Pis for our brains.
Perfect.
It's not the motion control brain. We're using basically Arduino. It's a at Mega Series chip. But yeah. What other questions do you guys have? Like if we run out of questions, I would because now I'm excited. Vulcan says he's doing hardware. I'll just share all of my hardware advice from all the lessons.
I'm out of hardware now. We was in two hardware businesses, but we got out. It was
Okay.
difficult.
Yeah, hardware's hard. How do you go
with software
about
for a while?
Yeah. Nduati or Nduati said to me privately, you mind if I read it out? Okay, I'm going to assume it's a yes because it's a good question. How do you go about educating your potential users and growing? Oh, thanks. Really educating the users is, I think, going to be more of a marketing push than anything, to where it's just known ubiquitously. But in terms of educating your potential users, there's much less about the sort of tech and how, and there's much more about the why, because you have people who are sending handwritten cards. And so if they see that their competitor is sending a handwritten card, like, it's a really easy sell, where it's like, oh, we're not doing enough of that. Like, how are we going to stand out? Especially this works especially for like enterprise. But for growth, it's just, like, we're seeing most of the organic growth from the sales enablement side, and we're basically going to be doing continued outbound sales, just cold stuff, and continued cold stuff for a new segment of the market, which is higher volume, which is the marketing and customer experience side of things. So that's our plan on how to grow users. We have, I think, 23 or 24 users right now. I can also check.
That's very cool, actually, because you get to send. So what you're doing, are you just sending your product out to their teams, and then hopefully someone gets it? Or how are you doing that?
Right. Yeah. So that's actually beautiful that you mentioned that. Part of our strategy is literally hitting people up with cold cards. Dog fooding. Well, can you fill me in on that? Actually, I haven't heard of that term before.
Yeah, so eating your own dog food or dog fooding is when you use your product to promote it, or you use your product internally or use it to promote your product elsewhere.
Yeah.
GitHub is a good example where, like, if you're working on GitHub at GitHub, you're using GitHub to inspire meta.
Perfect. Yeah. So it's exactly what you said, Vulcan, where a lot of our cool strategy is sending out these handwritten cards. The annoying part is when we send out more of our own handwritten cards, it literally just makes it more work for us. So the more we outreach when it's not fully automated, the more work. In the past I created for myself, now it's for Will as well. So in this next month or two, it'll be a lot easier because things are going to be more streamlined. And then we'll be able to like really abuse it. I mean, it's internal, like we'd use the service completely internally at actual scale, which would really help. But yeah, that is definitely the strategy. Absolutely. Good question.
Nice.
When we were on the phone a couple weeks ago, you were talking about selling to sales offices versus selling to marketing, and I thought that was a really interesting insight. I was hoping you could speak to it a bit.
Yeah, I guess the broader idea that could be found for everybody here is if you have several market segments, it may make sense to sell to one in order to generate the data needed to sell to the other, or to basically capture users in a certain market segment to then aid you in expanding to other markets. So in this case, what I noticed was we got a bunch of, oh, that's a kitty. Sorry guys, I'm totally ADD. We're talking on the phone with a bunch of these people who reached out to us on Reddit about using it for their e-commerce, or I think it was an r/entrepreneur. I think Chris also messaged me about that post. So yeah, the post got some attention, but I think it was an r/entrepreneur, and I was like, shameless plug. We send out these handwritten cards. The post was about how handwritten cards have an impact on our ROI. Like they will give you an ROI for your existing customers. I said, hey, we do this, like feel free to message us for more info. And like a couple people got back to us, and on the phone, it was drastically different to talk to people from marketing, because these guys were all marketing, they weren't sales. It was drastically easier to talk to the folks from marketing than it was to talk to sales. And it might be just a different personality type, which is easier for me. I'm kind of like a gullible goofball, so it maybe it was just, you know, that. But also what we're feeling is that marketing cares a lot less about, and customer experience, customer engagement cares a lot less about the actual return on investment and much more about brand awareness and how you make people feel. It's I feel like difficult to actually measure marketing in terms of how effective it is, other than like the indirect, like, oh, we saw this much more inbound or this much more ROI from existing customers. But they seem to care a lot less about the ROI. And if they did care about it, then they're like, well, we'll do a pilot anyway. Like, we'll try this out. And so what we're thinking of doing is using our marketing potential customers, obviously turning them into customers, to then generate all of the case studies and data we need to then go back to sales, who have been really focused on the ROI. They're like, how is this going to help me? And they're very cut and dry. They just want a simple answer of like, this will literally close deals 3 times faster for you, it'll provide this ROI. And so our plan now is to keep our existing sales enablement folks, but for us to just know that when we're cold calling for future sales enablement customers, it's got to be very much just cut and dry and use the data that we've gotten from our marketing stats to back up what we're doing for this other segment of the market. So that was, yeah, it was interesting.
I think I've heard of handwritten letters before on podcasts. So I'm thinking you shouldn't really be trying to target, you shouldn't try to educate the audience. You should find people who already find handwritten cards valuable. So
Right.
if you can somehow if you can afford the advertisement, there's a bunch of podcasts which are sales podcasts. So if you can get just
Exactly.
one or two ad slots on there,
Exactly.
you won't have to educate anyone, and they'll be spending hours writing letters. So you literally just talk to them instantly, and then it should just be
Right.
instant sales.
Exactly. Yeah. Couldn't agree with you more. And every sales book that I've read so far has mentioned that you should write handwritten cards. I don't want to make it 100% streak and say every sales book, but all the ones that I've read say like you should reach out in person and like get them something from like Harry and David for like a fruit basket, but at the least like write out a handwritten card.
Yeah, I've heard people sending books and stuff, so that could
Yeah.
be like another add-on you could do. You could say we'll handle the book. I just later on, but not now, but later on,
Right.
you like
Yeah.
a personalization company instead of just handwriting. But yeah, for now,
Yeah, absolutely. Like more than happy to get it. Like there's a bunch of markets to get into, like weddings, political constituency, nonprofits are slightly different from any other space. So there's definitely a lot. And the beautiful thing is, if we want, we could just open up a second or third, however many we want to pursue after getting to one market and say like, here's the same back end, but it's completely tailored to the experience that you want for the different markets. Like you were saying with books. Yeah, definitely a goal.
Dayu today, probably butchered that, asked about content marketing and why we're not showing up in Google. That's one of the things I'm going to be working on. And one of our first strategies is actually the biggest leader in the space, Bond.co, shut down. And they have a ton of backlinks that are just going to a dead website right now. So we're going to be reaching out in the near future to all of those people running those sites and asking them to redirect to our site.
how do you plan on targeting them? Have you got any software in mind that you're going to use? Because that's something I'm thinking about.
I don't. I'm open to suggestions. There is definitely software out there, but for like some of the blogs that I've looked at, like I'll drop a link in here. There's a tool that you can find. It's free. It's run by Neil Patel. You can find all of the links that go to a certain site, and they're organized by value essentially. And so they have links from like Business Insider. So I'll reach out to the writer on Business Insider and say, hey, this is dead now. This link is dead now. Do you mind? We do the same thing. Can you link to us? You'll probably have a 5% return rates for somebody actually getting back to you. But if you can get a couple of those big links, then that's massive. Some of those high domain authority DA links. But yeah, I'll drop the tool in here.
Great, thank you.
Also, one of the first pieces of feedback Will gave me before we even started working together as client and customer, client and business, as a customer, he was like, hey, here's a bunch of links for your SEO. And I think he linked me a BuzzSumo page, which was also, it's another tool, right? I believe it's SEO. But yeah, you can basically look up at what your competitors are using for their backlinks.
Yeah, that's how all freelancers should work. That's what I used to do when I freelance as well. I try to provide value and not just say, here, give me your money.
Right. Yeah. Consultative selling has been a big point. It's difficult for, I guess, someone young like myself, where I don't have experience in the markets I'm in, where it's like, I'm doing sales for 6 months. Here's how you should be selling. But yeah, if you can help people, then they really appreciate it. It comes back. It all comes back. Yeah. Yeah, I guess, if we have more questions, more than happy to answer them, but like, I'll just get my plug-in. I'll just be like, here's things to watch out for hardware.
Yeah.
Or in general. Huh?
How about get plug, and then we'll use, since we have a bit of time left, I'll split the meeting up into 2 breakout rooms. And so we'll be 2 groups of 4 and 4. We can have a couple conversations about whatever, and we'll probably have time for about 2 of those.
Cool. So I'll try to go through these quickly. So I guess we already answered one of these general lessons I've learned. Like, don't do hardware if you're near zero capital. Make money off of software to fund your fun hardware projects and startups. It's what I'm gonna do from now on. Like, my next thing might be a hardware thing, but it'll like, I don't expect to make all the money off of it. It's the software plays that are gonna give you the capital to start. I guess this is, I mean, maybe a little juvenile for this group of people, but like almost on a daily basis, ask if what you're doing that day improves the bottom line. Like, am I working on right now? Like, is it actually going to generate revenue? Is it actually going to solve people's problems? And that comes from talking to your customers. So like everyone says, talk to your customers, but like every like big decision that we make is like an epiphany from a customer, or several customers. So there's that. And then, yeah, everything's doable with Google. I was expecting there to be a crowd of like people who hadn't started, but want to start a business. And it was like just encouraging words there, but yeah, everything's Googleable. It's awesome. For hardware startup advice, always get the fastest shipping. Time is way more, it's worth way more than money, for like life in general. Like money is a tool, and it applies here as well. The more quickly you can iterate with your hardware product, the better off you'll be. Whether that's iteration due to customer feedback or due to like bugs that you have. Use a local manufacturer. They'll let you ask really dumb questions. You'll actually be able to visit them in person and see behind the scenes how things work. It'll probably make you a better designer for design for manufacture and design for assemblability. Let's see, for electronics, get an oscilloscope if you can. Some problems were just completely unsolvable for me until I got an oscilloscope, which you use one in uni or college, but. And then, yeah, I think we mentioned a little bit of black box, and I think it's a big thing to cover. But basically, the gist is, depending on what you want to do with your prototype, there's two polar opposites. It's black box, plug and play stuff, and then there's reinventing the wheel. And so depending on what you're measuring, those two lines are always going to intersect each other, where one will pay off more than the other, whether it's at scale or whether it's at ease of assembly at first. And so what I would say is that if you're scaling for a ton of like actual manufacturability, it's going to be a lot of like crying in the beginning, because you're not going to want to shell out the like high, what am I trying to say, like large amounts of upfront capital to get those first prototypes in. But on the flip side, when you do go to scale, it'll be much easier for you to keep your bill of materials down, keep all of your costs down. On the flip side, if this is just like a quick and dirty proof of concept, I've been super guilty of this. Like, don't reinvent the wheel. It's really enough to just fuck it, ship it, and get something in front of your customer. And then if they say like, yes, this is perfect, but I want it to be better, then you can do it. So in terms of hardware, yeah, very much be aware of like sticker shock, where it's like, oh, this is so expensive. Well, it's actually cheaper if you account for engineering hours. I'm not saying every expensive decision is that way, but there's a lot of instances in hardware where it's like you purchase a expensive part, but it means that your things will break down less and it'll cost you less and it'll be more scalable. So yeah, ask yourself what your goals are and how those are going to scale for hardware.
Is there one place you would recommend people who are new to hardware start?
In terms of resources or in terms of like purchasing stuff?
One for each.
Okay, I'll do a couple for the purchasing. Place to start for information. Reddit is a great place for any sort of like Reddit and YouTube. I feel like I've spent way too much time on Reddit and YouTube just screwing around, but the majority of my subscriptions are like, you know, mechanics and like manufacturing channels and electronics channels. So you get to learn a lot just through osmosis, where like if you don't understand something in the video, like you just get to look it up and, you know, start from square zero for that thing. What else? I'd buy a couple of, if it's specifically for electronics, like I just look at some university curricula and buy some electronics books. I highly recommend The Art of Electronics. Second or third edition is fantastic. Very much a noob. I sound like I know something here, but yeah, very much a noob here. There's just amazing resources, like references. For purchasing things, DigiKey is fantastic for like sourcing parts that are the most popular. You also have Mouser if DigiKey doesn't have something. I can post these in the comments. Let's see. For any sort of mechanical things that you want to make, just talk to IGUS. I'll put that in the link as well. It's what the crux of our current machine is working on. It's these two like slides from IGUS, and so you can attach a motor, and they're very reliable. Super easy to fix if something craps out. But yeah, IGUS is fantastic for any sort of like mechanical parts that have to do with load bearing. In general, like, just good stuff. What else? I would say there's a couple of, let me just look up which PCB house I use normally. So if you guys are making printed circuit boards, there are a bunch in China that are super easy to use. So PCB. I might also have to look at my personal account. PCB. There is, I think there's smart prototyping, smart-prototyping. There's also, oh yeah, PCBWay. I've been using PCBWay lately. Here, let me just type it out. Hopefully this should. Let's see if it actually, oh, I sent it to only Anthony by accident. Here, let me send it to everybody. Where'd you guys go?
Gotcha.
Let's see. Okay, awesome. Thanks, Anthony. Yeah, what else? Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is if you can, other than for circuit boards, if you're doing anything with like mechanics, like especially sheet metal or some sort of printing, like 3D printing. 3D printing is way accessible. So unless it's like some crazy carbon fiber, you know, water dissolvable, all sorts of you know, fancy materials, like you can buy a 3D printer and it's really easy to just prototype in-house. I would highly recommend it for anyone doing hardware. For any sort of metallurgical stuff, definitely visit your local manufacturer. I learned a ton about manufacturing just from going on site and like asking for the tour of the place. Like they gave me a full tour of like, this is how we actually make your parts. And so you also get ideas for how to make things later on. You can say like, oh, I know that they're capable of doing this and it's really easy. Like, why not just do this? And then again, like design for assembly and design for manufacturability are huge if you're going to scale. It's one of the biggest reasons why Kickstarters fail is manufacturing for design and assemblability. It's just really hard to do. You got to source everything correctly and make sure it's really easy on everybody's end. So yeah, those are the two things. Otherwise, I should shut up. I've been talking a lot.
Let's have the people who joined a bit later introduce themselves briefly, maybe starting with Vulcan. And please feel free to share links to anything that you're working on as well, or that you'd like people to see.
Yeah, hey, Vulcan, basically developer turned founder. I'm working on a SaaS landing page builder. I had that problem when I built my last SaaS company, and I think I just felt it needed to be solved, so I just built that. It's kind of like a very competitive niche, but I think I should be able to carve a nice slice out of it, and companies are worth billions in this space, so it seems big enough. And yeah, recently did a product hunt launch, came #1 weekly, so if anyone wants advice on that, I'm always here to help.
Nice. Kudos.
I'll link the products as well.
Mark, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, hi, I'm Mark. I've been an indie hacker since 2011. And ever since I've been trying to create new products. That's it.
Right on.
Are you a developer or marketer, sales?
Yeah, sorry, I've 15 years I was a software architect. So so all my products are software.
Very nice, very nice.
Nice.
Also, if anyone doesn't want to speak, just send me a message in the chat and I will not ask you to. But Ryan, you don't get that option. You have to introduce yourself.
Hey guys, I'm a grad student now at the University of Maryland in aerospace engineering. So Dan, Anthony, and we all met at a Startup Shell, which is a student-run incubator. Right now, I'm working on an aerospace-related flow control technology. My professor and I are trying to commercialize it. And in addition to that, I guess it's kind of like a financial services company that I do on the side just to help fund my activities and keep stress low. So yeah.
Right on.
Thanks, Ryan. I had no idea about the financial services. That's awesome.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it.
Sorry, Anthony, I totally interrupted.
No, it was good. Connor Ads, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a bit more of a lurker on the old indie hackers. I'm just going through a JavaScript React course, and then yeah, I'm gonna try and build something, not necessarily just build anything, even if it's not business, just to get going.
Hell yeah, that's awesome, man.
Glad to have you here.
If you need any help with React, that's what I do full time pretty much. So just send me a message.
Oh, nice one, thank you.
Yeah, likewise. I'm going to apologize ahead of time. I think I've been saying the name wrong the whole time, but Dayu Tere, if you are interested in introducing yourself, go for it. And they're putting it in the chat, so software developer. And if you have any links or anything you want people to check out, share that in the chat as well. Bill.
Also, I missed a question from Dayu today. Potentially, the question is, any plans of going international? Potentially, but there's just a huge market in the US to begin with. So we could definitely branch out to Europe, where the alphabet is the same for the handwriting tech. It does really depend on the language for now. But yeah, for now, it's just English.
Excellent. I think that just leaves you, Will. Do you want to give a quick intro and also maybe tell us how you found Dan and started working on Handwrite?
Sure, yeah. So I'm Will, software engineer by trade. Been working mostly on the front end and user experience for about 7 years now. And then I was going out as I was like coming off of my last gig. I was trying to start something, and that was like, as you mentioned, a software tool to help small businesses automate their outreach to their current and prospective clients. And that's how I needed an API for handwritten notes. That's how I found Dan actually on Hack and Move. And after a few weeks of thinking about it, I was like, I would much rather be the person selling the shovels to the gold miners than trying to mine for gold myself. So that's when I reached out to him and was like, hey, I think we have complementary skill sets. We probably work well together. So far, so good.
Sweet.
Pleasure to have you, bud.
All right, I'm about to take a group screenshot. So everyone give me a smile so that you look good. Yeah, fix the hair.
Probably not.
Oh, wait, let me try that again. I think I got a really blurry Connor. Are you activating camera mode, Ryan?
I'm trying to, but for whatever reason, it's not. All right, I think I'll just be a black screen. Sorry, bud.
All right, ready? In 3, 2, and 1. Nice. Beautiful people.
Oh.
Cool, this feels like a good place to wrap it. So I want to thank Dan and Will again for coming out, and everybody who made it to, I think it might be our 7th or 8th Indie Hackers Worldwide. One of our best yet. The only thing I would like to promote today is the September meetup, where we're going to have Cortland Allen on as our featured guest, who is the founder of Indie Hackers, website a lot of us are familiar with. And yeah, he's going to be available, same as Dan and Will were today, to tell a story and for Q&A. So if you ever wanted a chance to talk to him on a small scale basis, September 12th is definitely the time to do that. Any final parting words the Handwrite guys want to give?
Yeah, guys, I just want to say thanks so much. If I ever rambled or got off track, I really appreciate you bearing with me here. I get a little too passionate sometimes. So yeah, it was a blast meeting everyone, and yeah, really good questions from everybody, which I always appreciate. So yeah, it's an honor. Thanks a lot, Anthony. I really appreciate it, man.
Thanks for coming on. You guys did great. I feel like I learned a ton. All right, I'm going to end the meeting. I'm going to not end it for all, so if anyone wants to stick around, you feel free to. But yeah, it's great seeing everybody. Have a great whatever time of day it is where you are.
Awesome. Take care, Anthony. See you, man.
See you
Bye,
guys.
everybody.
See you, Mark.
Bye. See you then.
See you guys. Take care.